Hi, I'm Sarah Bentley Pearson, and I live here in Atlanta. I am sort of a renegade because I have done styling work, but my main job has been real estate, and I started that in 2005. And because I'm not from Atlanta, I created a list called Sarah's List. And then through the styling and all the work that I've done, I created my Instagram account, Sarah Styles Your Life. And I just decided, after realizing how many wonderful people I have met, that I wanted to create a podcast to share with you all the great people that I have met throughout the Southeast. There are so many talented people here, and I feel like Atlanta is really, or the Southeast in general, is really an innovator. And I hope that you will enjoy all my interesting, diverse guests that I'm going to bring throughout the years. So excited to share my interview with L.A. Stein, the designer, Lisa Stein. She happens to be one of my very, very best friends and a huge inspiration to me. And I want to share with you all of her inspiration and just introduce you to a real talent here in Atlanta. Well, Lisa, I first want to say, everybody who's watching, that you are my best friend here. I love you, and you're so talented. And when I first saw your work, I was so impressed. I just thought to myself, I want to have some of her jewelry someday. And that was back when you were doing the leather and the pearls, which we've kind of graduated from. We have. But your work is very innovative and constantly changing, like design of all fields. And
Thank
you and I have so much in common personally, but when I was reading your bio, I mean, some of the things I didn't even know, that we both went to FIT. I went in high school, but you went in college.
I did.
Did you live in the dorms?
I lived in the dorms.
Did you go clubbing too?
Yeah. Studio 54.
Yeah, well, see, and I was the tunnel era, but I went in the summer, so there were transvestites that would rent out the rooms at FIT, and they'd be like, "Get dressed up, let's go out," and it was very dramatic. So I feel like we both have that dramatic edge because we had those kind of experiences.
I think so too. And I think that New York at that time, I have to say, was incredibly creative. They had, I think everybody at that time could afford to live there, all the artists and all the musicians. And it was this tremendously creative time in New York City.
Which it isn't really now. It doesn't feel like it is. Now maybe it's Brooklyn,
yes.
Where people are, because now you have to be super rich to live in Soho.
That's right. You do. Whatever, so it really takes all the artists sort of out of the mix. Not to say that there's not art in New York, but it was really fun living there when all the artists were living there with you.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
And I dabbled a little bit when I went to FIT and thinking that I wanted to be in the fashion industry, and I ended up working in the fashion industry as well. I always said that I was a well-dressed maid because I was in merchandising, which I hated. But I had the bug for fashion, just like you do. You're always dressed fabulously, and we're sort of costumey, so we like to dress up. And so you lived in California, and that's where you started, and that's where you got your outdoorsy sort of vibe, which you said that you get a lot of your design inspirations from. In what way is that?
I do. I think to be outdoors with the flora and the fauna and the colors that you're dealing with informs so much of design. And so I can start with that. There are many other things that inspire me besides just nature, but I think I have a need to be outdoors and experience all those things. I really enjoy it. Because of my childhood and because I grew up in a beautiful place with great weather and a very outdoorsy family.
Well, and too, I mean, I didn't really grow up super outdoorsy, but I find now with our busy lives that it's essential to sort of calm you down and take time to notice things that are more subtle.
Right.
But what other things besides, like what do you think, like for some of your best pieces, or other than being outdoors, like what publications do you like to read?
Of course I love the fashion magazines because in my first life, in my career after FIT, I was a clothing designer for 10 years. I started in knitwear and then I became a clothing designer and the design director for a big division of a company for sportswear. And so I find inspiration from fashion, certainly. And I think with the kind of jewelry that I do and the people that I sell to, it's important that it's relevant with the fashion of the times.
Right.
And I so that's one thing that informs my design. I think what I really love is that Tucson is the big gem show in February. And it's been so sad because the last 2 years it's been tabled. And I can't tell you how exciting it is to see stones and new cuts and metals that are done creatively. It really inspires my work to see that kind of thing. And the other thing that really inspires me, because of maybe I'm a little older than you and, lived a little bit more, there's a lot of things that have happened in my life, lots of experiences, and I find that symbolism is so important to me. I do a lot of different symbolic pieces, amulets, the compass,
yes, I love
which is
the
a
compass.
symbol of a guidance and direction, and the stars, like follow your North Star.
And then what about the one, the woman one that we did for Amber?
The goddess.
The goddess.
Right.
Yeah.
So
What does that mean,
began
the goddess, exactly.
I began my company with the goddess as my logo, really. And I sort of just morphed it out of a symbol of an ancient goddess, and then sort of changed it and tweaked it a little bit and made a diamond piece from it. And it sort of took off, and it really resonated because it's a symbol of strong, creative women, fertility, but it's a very ancient symbol. And I love the idea that it symbolizes strength in women. And I love the idea of the strong female for obvious reasons, because we both are that. And I thought it was a great symbol for my company to begin with.
When we both have come from strong mothers. And
Yes.
I love hearing about your mom and your dad, and that your dad was a teacher, and he was kind of like a calming force, but I didn't realize he had gone to Stanford. So clearly he was very smart, but he sort of was under the radar a little bit. And your mom seemed more, being a model and being, you said that she had wigs and, was very...
We used to travel, and we'd go in campers. Like, we'd actually camp, and she would have styrofoam heads that she would bring with her. I felt like
Hilarious.
It was a scene out of Valley of the Dolls.
Right.
I mean, we had like 4 styrofoam heads with all the different falls, and she was gorgeous all the time, completely done. And yet she could still hang with my dad, who loved to camp, and we all loved to be outdoors, including her. But she was a fashionista.
My mom was too. I mean, she was very 80s, but when we lived in Germany, she would take me to Yves Saint Laurent and Pucci and really point out quality and design.
Right. Yeah.
And I feel privileged that I came from a family that paid attention to those details, because it really, it's a subtlety that I enjoy. And I feel
so too.
privileged to have been shown those things. And I think having a fashionable mother is a lot of fun, because I borrowed her Pucci when I would go clubbing.
Right. And she sort of taught you, I know my mom exposed me to a lot of different things that maybe made me a little more worldly than some of my friends, because Northern California at the time, now it's the wine country and this exclusive area, and really it's wonderful. But when I was growing up there, it was farms and horses and none of that. So she was pretty sophisticated in what she exposed us to. She was president of the Symphony League, so we went to the symphony all the time. And she took us to the city, San Francisco, all the time. I remember as a kid wearing little white gloves and, going to these great little restaurants with her. And, it's like your mom, I think we were exposed to a bit more.
Well, and just, I think having a mother that, even if they weren't always, dressed to the nines, they liked a sense of the drama. I mean, my mother loved getting dressed up for black tie, and she wore a lot of vintage because, a lot of evening wear can be kind of corny, and she just really was diverse with that. And I think from being somebody who loves your jewelry and always is in your jewelry.
You're the best muse.
I'm always wearing it and I feel naked without it. But I think all your customers, I mean, for the most part, they're all very dynamic women.
Yeah, I think so. I really, and I love the idea that they are dynamic women. And what I really love, and this is going towards sort of like how my customers have evolved in the 13 years I've been in business, it's really becoming so much more prevalent that women will come to me without permission or having their partners buy it for them. They will buy it because they're in the working world, they're thriving, and there's a sense of power, and I'm going to get this for myself. They no longer need it. Like, one of my things is you don't need to ask permission. It's like, you're strong, you're powerful, you're in charge of your own life. And those are the women that I really feel like I'm cultivating. And the one thing that I love is that especially now, I find my customers are getting younger. And what I love about it is that they are still those strong, powerful women that are in the working world.
Right.
And able to purchase things for themselves.
Well, and younger women aren't necessarily looking for the MRS degree now.
Right.
So they want to get out, they want to have their own apartment, they want to make some money and, really be relevant before they take that next step, which
Absolutely.
really messes with fertility, but that's a whole other subject.
Yes.
But I do know, now you have lastein.com and people are buying, more direct from you.
Right.
But I do remember seeing your work in Maxfield and Jeffrey,
Mm-hmm.
and I know you still sell here to Tassels as well, but how is that working for you online now with people buying direct online? I find that so interesting that somebody will make a big purchase online still.
Right. It's always, honestly, no one's more surprised than I am when that happens. Mm-hmm. And it's something that I'm working to really cultivate. It's a process, though. As a businesswoman, you have to invest in people to do SEO work and ad work, and it's a whole process doing it.
What is SEO work?
Search engine optimization. It's how you pop up
Mm-hmm.
on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
It's if somebody were to Google you, it sort of puts you on top to be Googled, so people recognize you and see you first, kind of thing. And I think it's becoming more and more important to do that, and all this work. And that's where I'm going to be putting a lot more effort into my work for that. And I also sell a lot, especially now through trunk shows, which I love because I'm interacting with my customers and I learn what they like and what they don't like. Mm-hmm. And the word sort of grows organically that way, which I love that my business has grown.
And are most people who are buying from you online, they've met you and seen you, or have you had anybody just buy something big who you've never met?
Both. I've had both. I have more so it's people that know me from a trunk show or from seeing the jewelry on a friend, because I'm all over the country now. So, I could be in Austin or California or, Chicago, because we sell to a Crom, which is a fairly major retailer in fine jewelry and clothing in Chicago. So you sort of get a lot of exposure that way. And so it comes from a variety of different ways. And I think the ads help too, because I think people become familiar with you when they see your ads. It's like that comfort level.
On Instagram?
Yeah, certainly Instagram is probably the biggest vehicle for getting your business off. I feel like my Instagram is really like a catalog. And so if somebody's asking me about my jewelry, I just say, here's my Instagram tag, and that's all you have to do is look through my Instagram and you'll know exactly who I am.
Yeah, it's almost better than just one ad, so people can see one and then click and see your history.
Right.
And
then I have people DM me that way too, and they buy online or they, DM me, and they could be from, another state or whatever. So,
I know. I mean, and I have people stop me all the time about your jewelry. So I in reading your bio, it sounded like you really started with the hoops.
I did.
That was
Well, actually, we're right next to the Spanx, and my PR gal, Meg Reggie, got together with Spanx, and when Jessica Alba was having a baby, we sent her the hoops and a pair of Spanx. And the next day, I don't even know how this happens, the next day she was photographed with the hoops at a farmer's market looking absolutely spectacular, earthy, beautiful. And it was just the best, advertising you could possibly get. Now, she also said it's okay to photograph. We had to get permission and the whole bit, but she did. And so that was great.
Yeah.
And that was sort of how they started. And they've just become, I do all sorts of variations on the theme, but like I'm wearing sort of the Mac Daddies and you're wearing my goddess hoops.
I wear these all the time because they're so light, but
right.
I know that sort of was your signature, but now, just over the years, I would say over the last 7 or 8 years, your work has gone to a whole nother level.
I think so too. I mean, you can't be a one-shot wonder kind of thing with the hoops, and I do not have any problem being inspired or thinking of the next thing. And I think like my customers do. Okay, I have the hoops. What am I going to wear with the hoops? Okay, so I do a necklace. So I do a charm necklace. So I have this charm. What else can I add to that?
Tell us about the layering, because obviously we're always layered. You can't just have one on or you feel naked.
Right. And I think layering is huge now. In fact, I'm about to do a layering blog, because I think it's the biggest question that my customers always ask me: how do I do this? And maybe to you and I, it's easy, and maybe a little bit more obvious, but customers really struggle with that. And yet it's a huge look. So I find that people, like, you're great at mixing. You're very creative in the way you do it. You mix metals, but a lot of people will only layer yellow gold, and then, so you sort of have to instruct them to, okay, you have one that's 14 inches, one that's 16 inches, sort of that cascading look.
Right.
But I think you could be a lot more creative about it too. I think people are afraid to mix pearls with, gold and all those things.
I just watched last night, actually, Jenna Lyons, who used to do J. Crew. She has a new show. She's trying to incorporate her design and fashion, and she was teaching these people about, if you're wearing a big top, you got to wear a skinny pant, and she really was focused on high-low.
Right.
And I think that is,
I love that idea too.
I love that. I don't really like a lot of costume jewelry, but I do like the idea of maybe, remember in the day when they were doing pearls, I think it was Sarah Jessica Parker, with pearls that were on grosgrain, and just sort of mixing it up. And then I've got to talk about this, because when my mother died, all of her jewelry was so 80s, and I there was nothing I could do with it, but I decided I've got to keep a set of the pearls, and you put the spikes on it and some of the diamonds in between. And I had that online, and people were just dying. And I feel a little bit like a Vermeer painting in them. They're so major, like, where am I wearing these? But I love how you can take something traditional and mix it up. So talk a little bit about that, how you started with that, with the pearls, and what's happening, and what you've done custom things.
Yes,
for clients of mine too.
Yes, I do a lot of custom things for people, and especially, I loved the fact that they were your mother's pearls, and that to me was so special. And she would have loved the whole idea.
And you said they smelled like her.
They did,
when you took them out.
I know.
Was cool.
It was so cool, and I love people taking heirlooms like that. And even if you're taking stones out of a necklace that's no longer relevant and you're remaking it to be current, I love the idea that you're still wearing those stones that were from your mother or your grandmother, and those pearls were such a beautiful color. They were those golden South Sea pearls, which was definitely your color and your mother's color. And then it was so much fun to make them. You're so edgy. It was so much fun to create something that matched your style. And then, of course, when you did it, other people wanted them.
But I wore them with a wedding dress, which, I was looking for something to wear of my mother's to sort of be sentimental. I mean, I'm not really sentimental, but it fit the dress, which was a Monique Lhuillier dress, and it was so fancy. But I like wearing them with jeans and a white shirt too. And
I love that. And I think that informs my jewelry too, because I think we're all so casual these days that I really don't design a lot of things that are special occasion. I really want everything that I do, almost everything. There are exceptions, but almost everything that I do to be something that you can wear with jeans and a t-shirt or a cocktail dress.
I mean, and I was even, you were on speed dial for my husband Jim, and you helped him with my ring. And I like things sort of a little more on the sporty side.
Right.
You know, where you can, and I think that is just the direction. I mean, when I see, you know, a very expensive necklace in a magazine that looks just so over the top, I think I wouldn't even want that. Like, where are you going to wear that? And then if you're older, it makes you look older.
Yeah, I think sometimes it can be matronly.
Yeah, and I think that's always the balance is, you know, how do you age well and still look relevant? And I do, as you know,
that's the big question.
Yeah, but when I do some styling, which I've done for some of my clients, you know, it's the first thing I want to look at is their jewelry, because I don't care what you're wearing. If you have some out of date looking jewelry, it ruins everything. So if you start with that, you can put on jeans and a t-shirt and you look amazing. Right. And price per wear, jewelry is cheap if you wear it all the time.
If you get things that you love,
yes,
that you wear all the time.
Yeah.
And I absolutely believe that.
And I think you've honed into that market so well, because we all, and now you're doing the tennis necklace, which I love. Right. So putting that, you know, taking it to the next level, but then still mixing it as you're doing to everyday jewelry.
Right. I think cool. That is the secret of it. And I think that you can layer, as I'm doing here, I'm layering a very heavy Miami Cuban chain, like the ball players wear with the diamond in it, with like a delicate floating diamond piece, and then, you know, a big old charm necklace kind of thing.
Yeah, it's so great. So why don't you tell me a little bit, since we both love fashion, why don't you tell me about some of the designers that you really love, and you know, when you're looking at them, you think, oh, I want to put my jewelry on a woman. Like when I was talking to Young about how they do houses, and he says, well, you know, we create a story about them, and, you know, they summer in Provence, and they eat at this kind of a restaurant, and they wear these kind of clothes. Do you do that too when you are designing your jewelry, thinking, she wears this kind of clothing and I like it?
Absolutely. I think it's like I try and put myself in the customer's shoes, and in some ways I am, you know, I live that life, you know, as not that life of traveling constantly, but I try to travel and you know, whether it be domestically or foreign or whatever. And when I travel, I like jewelry that I can wear with all the things that I'm traveling with, you know, whether it be like, you know, t-shirt or, you know, like leggings and a blazer kind of thing, or a cocktail dress. So, you know, I want things that work. Like my hoops work with absolutely everything. Like you can take these and wear them just with nothing but the hoops and a t-shirt, or you can pile all this other jewelry on and wear them to a formal affair kind of thing. They have the diamond studs at the top, and so they're still sparkly, but there's still a casualness about it. And of course, I love the history of hoops because I am Hispanic. I have a lot of Hispanic in my blood, and my mother raised me, and she was always wearing hoops. And so to me, it's a mainstay in everybody's jewelry wardrobe.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, a little stud too, you can't see if your hair's long and all of that.
Right.
But are there some designers that you really like?
Yeah, you mean fashion design?
Yes.
Of course, there's fashion designers that I absolutely love, and of course, I love Valentino. I love Gucci and Michelle. I can't remember his name, but he's just so inspiring color-wise. And then, of course, mourning the loss of Virgil Abloh, who was just so incredibly creative, and we're going to miss him for sure. But you know, Balenciaga and all those designers, Dior, like who doesn't love all the beautiful feminine things that Dior is doing right now, you know? So I think all of those designers, you know, influence what I'm doing. In terms of like Dior, I would say it's a wonderful thing to wear pearls with some of those Dior pieces, you know, and we do some very edgy pearls, not just the spike necklace like you have, but earrings that are just not quite the classic pearls, you know, not really what we say is not your grandmother's pearls.
Right, like the pearl on the stick that you do, which I think is great. And do they find that on LA Stein too?
Right, they do.
Okay.
They find all of that. So I started a pearl line with my partner Sarah Harris, and so we have a pearl line under the LA Stein umbrella that is also carried on, and it's called Deux Filles, is actually the name of the company. And we started out by doing those leather and pearl and diamond necklaces that everybody was
and
wrapping.
I loved it. In fact, I left one doing flywheel, and you came home and you said you found this. Oh, I was like, oh my God, I left it on there because I was wearing my jewelry to work out.
Right.
Which is so.
And it's like we were all wearing it. It was such a huge thing for a number of years, and we just took off right out of the box. And all the stores that were already carrying LA Stein picked up all the leather and pearls. Another example of a piece of jewelry that people can wear with everything. And most of these, women never took it off.
Right.
I did it for men. We did it for men too.
Yeah, talk about the dog tags that you did for men.
Right.
I got one for Jim, and he wore it for a while.
Right. I was sort of inspired by a customer that came to me, and her husband had an illness, a chronic illness that he has since passed, but for years, this was years ago, and she wanted me to do something. He loved the symbol of a panther because it was the symbol of strength and courage, and it meant something to him. And I thought of a lot of ways to do it. Should I do it a relief? Should I do it in stones? And then it occurred to me that it was sort of cool. It was actually a constellation, so I could actually do a constellation on a fairly heavy piece of metal, and I ended up doing it on a black and white gold for him, and they loved it. Right. And he wore it, all these years. He's worn it, and then she got it for her kids, and that is really special. Right. When it resonates with like a whole family like that, and it really meant something. It was great.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, your work means a lot to all of us, because it really does have symbolism. This one right here, the dog tag, I have one Pearson and one of Jim, and it's just a little small thing to create something personal in what you're wearing. I mean, when we were young, we all did the charm bracelets. My mom did that, and when we were traveling to Italy or France.
Guess what? This came off of my mom's charm bracelet. She gave me a charm bracelet with 3 huge gold charms, and this was one of them. Right. And then this is like a
necklace. Now we're all adding charms to these.
Right.
So it is really cool to have your. I feel like jewelry's become more important in fashion, at least for me, than it was 20, 30 years ago. I mean, I don't remember my mother wearing the amount of jewelry. I mean, I'm sometimes like, do I need to take something off because it's on everything?
You're great because you layer it.
I layer it, but sometimes it's like, oh, it's a little bit much. But I would turn around and spin around in the car and go back if I wasn't wearing it because it feels so personal. And I don't really remember. I remember my mom wearing a wedding ring and a watch. And then in the evening, she would dress it up. Right. But and she'd have her clip-on earrings because that was that era. But I think now I'm seeing, at least in our contemporaries, we're all pretty layered up.
Absolutely. It's a huge trend. I mean, as the pearls were, 8 or 9 years ago, whenever that was, the trend right now, even as gold is going up and up, people are collecting gold and layering it, and so it's a huge trend right now. And it is surprising because gold is so high, and everything has gotten more expensive. But people, that is still, maybe it's the value that it holds, because gold is intrinsically recyclable, and so there's a beauty to that. That it's.
We melted down my mom's jewelry that I didn't want, and I felt terrible about it because she bought a lot of it in Venice, and it was like, oh, this is so great, but I'm like, it's all spiky with little diamonds, a brooch or whatever. But it had a lot more value than I thought it would have. Yes. And I was able to buy a photograph from Jackson Fine Art from it, and that made me feel good too. So it was one valuable thing traded for another. Well, are there any women like muses that you have?
I would say you're like my biggest muse. I mean, you're I have lots of muses, but you are such a fabulous, and you inspire me too, because the way you wear it is not the way I wear it. And so I love to watch you and the way that you'll put those pearls, like most people would put those spike pearls on and that would be it.
Oh no, I got it.
And you are layering it up with your Sarah and with your tennis deck, whatever you got on, whatever you have on, and you're just completely unafraid. And I think it's such a great way to express your own creativity, which you have a ton of, so it's so much fun. I mean, I have, of course, my mom loves my jewelry. She's 90 and she loves when, I just gave her a piece of jewelry and she absolutely loves anything that I give her, of course.
Oh, wow.
And so she's wonderful. But I do have lots of friends that do teach me, that I learn from them and the way they wear it.
Well, I feel the same way about you and your style. You're always very cutting edge and sort of calling me up and saying, should I do this? Should I not? And then we'll give each other our opinions on things. But, there are a lot of that, when I was talking about interiors and architectural homes and gardens, it seems as though there's so many creative people here in Atlanta that are really very cutting edge. I mean, a New York woman has always seemed quite sophisticated to me. Right. But I find now that when I'm in the Northeast, the women in Atlanta and in the South are very beautiful. And, you and I both have commented when we moved here, we were like, we got to up our game a little bit.
These
Southern
girls.
Women really...
They bring it.
They bring it. And it used to be very pageanty, but I don't see that now. I see it as very pulled together and clean, and just the attention to aesthetics in the South, to me, that's why I started this podcast, because I feel so fortunate with the people that I have in my life here. And it's from interior designers, jewelry designer, landscape architects, and it goes on and on. So I think the South is a great place to be. I hope that you all will enjoy my wonderful sponsor, L.A. Stein. L.A. Stein was created by Lisa Stein, and her work is beautiful. She has given us a special discount for all of my customers, and that is the promo code SARAH, SARAH, 15. It's the new year. Start your collection.
And I'll tell you something interesting about the South. I think when I first moved here, it was pretty tough because I came from New York City and they didn't have a museum, like they didn't have any culture. They hardly had any restaurants. And after the Olympics, it exploded and all these things. But the one thing that it always did have was diversity. And people, like I'm from California and then I lived in New York for 10 years and people were like, sort of speaking, not sort of disparaging about moving down to the South, like how could you? But I find that the South is so much more interesting and diverse, and in that diversity there's so many more interesting and inspiring looks here that people are so creative with the way they dress, and they're more colorful here too.
Well, yeah.
It's not just about the black.
I mean,
like we were talking
remember
about
Keisha at my wedding in her crown and her Dolce dress. I was like, bring it, baby. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah. Unafraid and proud of, just really being creative, with how she dressed. And she also is a jewelry designer and wonderful and a wonderful person, I might add. But anyway, it's just so fun to be inspired by all that diversity and all the different kinds of people that live here. But I do think that Southern women they wear color more. We always said it in the Garment Center. We'd always say, okay, we got to design this for the South because they love color. But they do, they're much less inclined to wear all black. They're just much more creative with the clothes and the jewelry sometimes that they wear.
Well, and I think Atlanta, at least it was for me when I moved here, kind of kicking and screaming with my ex-husband. And
me too.
It all looked like strip malls, and I just thought, I'm never going to find my tribe here. Although I laid down the line and said, don't move me to some little small town, move me somewhere that has a Whole Foods and a Neiman's, because at least if they have that, I'm sure I'll do okay. But I had no idea really what was it's not on the surface here. I mean, I feel like Atlanta is beautiful residentially.
Yes.
And so
Very.
if you come to Atlanta, we don't have any culture really. I mean, not like New York or Washington,
We've gotten
D.C.
a whole lot more.
We've gotten a lot more,
Oh
but
my
in
goodness,
general,
yeah.
that's not been what drives us. I mean, we don't have the Broad and, all these, they have the big collectors aren't necessarily here, but it is very under the radar, super chic.
Yes.
Super chic.
Yeah.
And I think if you live here and then you know about that, like Tuxedo Park and Ansley Park and Brookwood Hills and all, I'm just talking residentially,
Right.
Peachtree Battle, it's really top notch. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily like say it's the flats of Beverly Hills or Palm Beach in terms of that like iconic sort of
Right.
feeling, but it's really impressive. And I think that but I think also because there's a lot of people have moved to Atlanta from a lot of different
lot of
places,
other places.
which has helped it too. You
I
being
think
from
so too.
California.
I think it makes it like it certainly contributes to that diversity in terms of people coming from different places in the United States and settling here, and it's great that way. There's plenty of people that are natives as well, but I think Atlanta is also, it's unusual to be living in a city where it feels like the suburbs, but you're really in the middle of the city with
Right.
some of these beautiful suburbs,
Right.
and because of the trees and the lush greenery, and it's a beautiful city that way.
It is, and like in the neighborhood I live in, I feel like Diane Keaton's going to come rolling out of one of these houses. It kind of feels like that,
Right.
Nice suburban sort of feeling. But then you're 5 minutes to,
Right.
we're right in the center, right here. Well, before we finish up, is there anything that you want to talk about that you feel like is like the next trend or something you're working on right now?
You know what? I'm also, the other thing that inspires me is vintage jewelry. And I bought a bracelet a couple of weeks ago from one of my favorite vintage dealers. And that's also a big source of inspiration for me. So I actually did this 4-leaf clover, and enamel is such a huge look right now, but I have been reluctant to sort of, participate in that trend until I felt like I was going to be doing something a little bit different. And so I love the idea of searching out. That's the only jewelry that I actually buy is vintage jewelry that will inspire me to do my own jewelry. So I did want to say that, but I also think that I'm so grateful to have, I love connecting with all my customers, which is why I love to do these trunk shows, travel and do the trunk shows, because I find women, all of us are so interesting, and everybody's doing such interesting things, and people have experienced some, like all of us have had difficulties in our lives, and I've had some sort of, a little bit more, challenges. And I think that,
But you've also had a really like privileged
Yes.
life. It's
Absolutely.
And I mean, even if you looked at
And
Jacqueline
lucky.
Kennedy, there was crisis and sadness in her life, but then it was like
Right.
so fabulous. You're kind of to me like that,
right.
like
And I think
nobody
that you
has
have to
easy.
celebrate all of that. I had cancer a couple of years ago, and I feel so lucky to be here and alive and loving life, and every day means so much to me, and my family is so important to me, and my daughter Sophia, of course, I'm like a library to her. She basically comes in and we'll pick a few jewels out, and I'm taking these, and she checks it out for a while and then brings them back and then checks some more in, and I love that. And I love, like, all her friends are becoming such strong, independent, smart women. They're able to manage their own finances and buy a house on their own. We talk about that all the time, buy a house on their own, buy a car on their own. And I think that's so important to learn that, to teach that to our kids, our daughters, our sons, that kind of thing. And I want to continue to have that and celebrate that in all my customers.
Yeah,
Really.
you do a great job with that, and your customer base, which I know a lot of the people are those women for sure. Well, I love you, and I'm
you
so
too.
honored that you have been, one of my first few guests, and your work is amazing. And
Well, I'm honored that you would have me.
Oh,
First of all, this
please.
is so great, and you're such a natural.
Oh, well, I'm just excited to present all the wonderful people and connections that I've made in this city. But your work is beautiful. We'll be collecting forever. And again, everybody can go to lastein.com. And you've been so nice to give us a code, Sarah15 at lastein.com. If you want to buy something start the new year out right.
Start your collection.
Start your collection.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Love you.
Love you.
I'd say the biggest question that my customers ask me is, how do I layer my jewelry? And there's many different answers to that. One of them, I would start by saying that usually you want to layer jewelry it sort of cascades. And maybe some of it has to do with the lengths. If you start with a choker that may be 13, 14 inches, then the next length might be 16 inches, the next length might be 18. And so you can sort of look at it that way too, that, from short to long. Some people love to layer the same color. So if you're starting in yellow gold, the rule is stay with yellow gold for some people. I have no problem, and Sarah loves to mix metals, which I love. The yellow gold with the rose gold, the white gold, and I love blackened gold, black and white gold with yellow gold. I think you can really be creative and sort of put your own stamp on your jewelry by doing that. And I also think that mixing textures, whether it be gold, pearls, beading. I've done a lot of beading with diamonds too. You can get some really beautiful beads. And I love the idea of layering and mixing all that too. And I think the thing that people shouldn't forget as well is that we not only layer our necks, and actually we're really layering our ears as well. I don't know if you can see but I'm wearing I have 2 extra holes, and I'm wearing Huggies in my holes in addition to my diamond studded hoops. And then this is an example of sort of your neck, your bracelets and the bracelet layering, as is layering with rings. So I think you can do it everywhere. And of course I'm wearing a lot, but some people want to do all delicate. You can mix delicate with chunky, as I've got, or you can keep it all delicate. So I think there's many ways of doing it and expressing your creativity that way. And I love when my customers take my jewelry and do something really unexpected with it.